It's comfortable.
How about me when I don't have my leg up?
Do you want your leg up?
I'm a tall girlie.
You're not really cool. We should just have those foot things next
Hey,
time.
Chonga.
Okay, if we're ready, I'm just going to go straight into...
When we have those foot things, we can just add someone to do a pedicure as well.
Yes, right. Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel and a brand new podcast called the Relebogile Mabotja Podcast. Those of you that know me and my work know that I'm kind of a conversationalist, as I'd like to call myself, but I genuinely enjoy having rich, meaningful conversations with different people from all walks of life. Now, I know you've been begging for another type of conversation, but I'm like, let me bring you this kind of conversation where I will be talking to public figures and people from different walks of life about all things to do with life, careers, loss, love, fun, maybe even current affairs. We're just going to create a space where we can have a bit of fun, and also just a space outside of traditional broadcasting mediums where we're restricted. And I think it's so me and it's so the time. So we are starting off with our very first guest, who I'm so excited to be talking to, because in the different ways we've met each other professionally, we actually have had conversations outside of those spaces. And I think we have a very similar philosophy when it comes to how we approach public life. So I'm so excited that we have in the building award-winning Msaki. And it's not radio, so I would have said, bah, 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 bah. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me on your first
Episode 1.
I'm really honored, actually. And because as a person who also really values conversation and doesn't have them often,
yes,
I really think that this is special for me too. So I appreciate it.
I feel you do have conversations often, just not with cameras and mics on.
Yes.
Right?
Tell me more why you think that.
Well, let me take us back to when we first met. I remember the Afro Cafe team and I talking about, we need to have Msaki on. And I'd sit and listen to your music. And then you were the very first artist to bring a harp onto our stage.
That was special. I remember that.
I just remember thinking, she's a muso. Like, I was having goosebumps that you had a harp in studio. We had to be like, how are we shooting it? Which way are we angling it? Yeah. And I felt challenged as a producer doing the musical directing of the show.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, she's so about the music. There was no part of you that came in of like, she's so pretentious, she's so worried about. You were all about the music.
You did such a great job on that show. I remember that distinctly, actually. And thank you for that.
I loved your sound. And then as you started to grow and collaborating with different DJs and producers, I was like, she's so versatile. Like, your voice is fits in everywhere. And I was saying to the team before we started shooting, I was like, Msaki will never have a picture of her singing like this.
What?
Like, you're never hitting with... Have you seen that meme where they say, what Ashanti song deserves all of this? And they're showing...
And she's so mellow that time.
Yes, so I've always seen you as this mellow, effortless performer. You're never straining or pushing your vocals. It feels so soulful and spiritual for me. It's like, I can't even say which chakra you're singing from, but there's a chakra that you sing from. It is a source. I don't know if that makes sense.
Thank you so much. I think what I'm feeling about what you're saying is you are recognizing, I guess, an intentional ease in how I've tried to move with something that I feel is a gift, you know? And the other thing about a gift is that, like, it arrives and you figure, and it's a gift to me, but that knowing the timing to know, like, when I can give it away as well, sit with it long enough for it to heal me. I can't perform the songs. They kind of just are pouring out of me by that time.
Yes.
I'm in overflow when I get to perform them. And part of why, we're probably going to get to this, but part of why I'm very careful now about when I'm doing things, when I'm performing, when I'm not, is because I'm very aware when it's coming from a space that's not overflow. And I've been able to tap into that just because that ease has always been there, And it's something that I don't want to ever take for granted, if that makes sense.
No, completely. Yeah. I'm just thinking as you're speaking, when you say you have a gift, what would you say it is? Because I've been trying to figure that out for myself. And where I am right now is I think I'm a messenger and almost a tool for people to receive messages, whatever shape or form. And in some ways, being a messenger in also being a teacher of sorts. But I'm just the vessel. It's not from me. And that comes out in the different things that I do, is I just create spaces where people are able to learn things about themselves or figure things, have dots connect in their brains or light bulbs go on. But some people just look at it as a gift. Oh, you can sing. So what do you think your gift is?
I don't think my gift is about singing. I think that it comes and it definitely expresses itself in that way sometimes, which is why I'm not a vocal gymnast. And I'm quite happy just delivering the melody and the line with its essence, you know, when it also rests on me. Because I think the other thing about songs is that I feel like I'm in collaboration with this beautiful universal library of music, and that's connected to source, and that connects all of us. And so if I've gone inward, taken a library book out and been like, okay, the song has descended upon me because I found a moment to keep quiet. I'm a custodian of that message and that song now. But now what I've started doing, because I've had time to kind of look back, I've been trying to trace the common denominator between these songs, and I've realized I actually like encouraging, you know. I think I have that as something that wakes me up at night. Like, I wake up and I think, how can I encourage? Sometimes it presented itself, you know, on a macro scale, but it would just be like, maybe my friend who I went to varsity with has been struggling she's been going to lots and lots of different job interviews, and now she's a frustrated, unemployed graduate. I know how bright she is. I know what an incredible, valuable person she'd be in a team or a workforce, or, you know, I'm encouraging her to try her own stuff, and she's feeling, you know, discarded, depleted, and looked over, and also betrayed by her gifts. So, you know, a song that maybe ends up connecting with a lot of people, I was writing for my friend, and I was saying, Chomam, Boma Bomanga, you know, or I was writing it for myself, or it landed for something else, but it becomes, you know, and I'm trying to trace those little mountains of like, what is this leading to? Like, where do these songs connect? Where do they come from? And I can only really see that when I change my vantage point and I say, like, what do I care about? What's the essence of the things that bring me together? And if I look at my own life script, it's starting to look a little bit more like, I want to encourage creativity. I'm really, really into community. And I'm interested in communion with myself, people with each other, and essentially with source, you know.
And I think it's a good opportunity maybe for us to touch on the fact that, yes, the one thing you're really known for are your songwriting abilities, your musical and singing abilities, but you do so many other things in terms of workshops and retreats and those kinds of things. And I'm wondering for you, how do they all connect? Because it might be obvious for you and I how they all connect, of maybe teaching people how to connect with themselves and have whatever their gift is pour out of them the way it easily pours out of you. What would you say of all these things that you are doing, if you were to put the name? You said encouraging, and the first thing I thought is, oh, she's not a motivational speaker, she's a motivational singer and songwriter.
Not even.
I just love what you said of waking up every day and saying, okay, what am I offering? How am I serving?
But that's the thing, is that it's not every day. And that's how I know that I'm betraying some of the things that I've come here to do, because I care about that so much. But I don't know. For me, it's just been examining the natural byproducts of being who I am. If I'm left to my own devices, what do? I'll probably organize a workshop, or I'll organize a camp, or I'll do something where, you know, I think, as I said, you know, when I was trying to articulate what I think my life script is, it definitely has something to do with this like belief that we're all creative. And I think part of that facilitation, whether it's in workshops with students or songwriting camps or even wellness retreats, which is now something that has become quite an anchor in my life because I needed it. And it wasn't even about like, oh, you know, what do I have to, it wasn't about, it wasn't about like trying to be a gift. It was more understanding that to be well, I've got to create the spaces for myself to be well, and I needed to extend that to my community because I honestly think that we learn together and we can pull each other's healing and creativity. Like, we can pull each other's lessons on creativity when we do it in community. If you have a revelation about like how, you know, don't have a healthy creative voice because somebody didn't take your drawing and put it on the fridge when you're 7 years old, and that's a real revelation for you, that affects the spirit and the atmosphere of the room. I might not have had that experience, but it becomes a fragrance of healing that I can almost have through you. If I can say, oh, well, I didn't learn how to take care of my gift and it made me tired, and now I'm really, really saying that balance is just as important as productivity, that lesson being that real for me will color the atmosphere. And you don't have to go through my pain to be able to take on my lesson. And I think this is why we're meant to heal in groups. It's great that we have individual therapy, but I think that the fact that community is under threat, individualization is romanticized. You have a child and you don't have support because you're taken away from your village and your community, and your mother's in the Lalini, and your neighbor doesn't know you, so you can't say, please hold my child, I'm tired, That hoax of that being progress, and the fact that it's divorced us from community, singing together, healing together. We've always healed in groups. We're healing by ourselves because of necessity and shame. And it's still something that I think I advocate for, but when there's a chance, healing in groups it gives you exponential healing.
And I think that's powerful because as groups, we need group healing for the things we've gone through as communities, not just as individuals, be it like if there was an area that had a whole lot of floods or some devastation happened somewhere, it's important because they all experience a shared trauma for them to be healing with it together. You mentioned something about being well and making sure you are well. What does being well mean for you?
I don't want to lie. I mean, I think, that notion of, I've been given this gift and it's doing X and Y for me in the world gives you a burden where you think productivity equals success and being booked and busy, and it's all well, it's all is well with that way of thinking, because it's a blessing to be wanted for the things that you can do and the things that are coming out of you naturally. All my gratitude to that. But if you're not a good custodian of that, and the same thing eclipses your judgment about whether you're present for your family, your friends, your kids, yourself, the same gift goes and becomes a curse. And for me, I, almost learned that too late. It was just so overwhelming how much love there was, but at the same time, I don't think at the time I had a team that was able to kind of make sure that they protect my energy levels, and I was overextended. And I think for me, being well is having a sense of balance and having a sense, a very intentional way of resting. Because I had a burnout, I'm still in a very deep rest where I'm realizing that even, being on my second year where I haven't been performing, it's not enough time yet to feel untired. Because the amount of strain and the amount of pushing that happened to get me to breaking point was a lesson that I really have to sit down, recalibrate, rebuild new foundations, and make sure that if my life is going to look anything like that again, there's fortification, but also never again will I allow for that imbalance to be my reality.
So maybe share with us then, because when people imagine burnout, it's often only related to work commitments. But burnout can be the commitments that happen in your entire world. The other misconception maybe is that people will expect to see a gig guide and see like, oh, she had 7 gigs in 1 week, but that's not always how it presents itself. So what was burnout for you? Was it spending excessive amounts in studio, spending excessive amounts writing? Was it not taking adequate breaks between the different gigs? Was it signing up for too many projects at the same time? Because it's different for everybody. And I guess it's personal based on the capacities and coping mechanisms you have in your life at the time.
For sure. I mean, I think embracing, everything that was coming as a gift and really just trying to be, I have energy as well. And I think I misled people by thinking that because I had energy, I could go everywhere. My burnout was solely from being on the road and also, doing corporates during the week. My week would typically start on a Wednesday or a Thursday, and I mean like almost every week. And then towards the silly season of, September, October, November, in fact, August, it was
from Women's Month.
And because you need to hold your gratitude with a sense of holding yourself accountable for what you can and can't do, I didn't have the wisdom to make those calls. And I think part of it, this lesson for me was also to learn how to lament when things feel overwhelming, and I didn't have the switch, you know. I developed it a bit late, so it was, you know, I just wasn't the kind of artist that was always showing you in your face that like I've got, you know, but lots of gigs. But in a weekend, I would easily be doing like six gigs, and because of the industry in South Africa, you know, anywhere where someone can pay a deposit and put you on a poster, you go. And the discernment there on like, let's release an album, let's have a logical tour that has a geographical mapped out. No, sometimes in one weekend I'd go to Cape Town twice. I'm there on Friday.
Oh my gosh.
And then I come back and I do something in Pretoria and then another gig. And because I started straddling this world where I was an acoustic musician that had a full band life with, you know, leading like sometimes a 10-piece band, a 5-piece band, a trio. We're getting booked in festivals. And then at the same time, I had an entire life as a house musician where I'm between Sanal and Bonobo and Black Coffee, and I'm playing at 3 a.m. So in a day, like in a Saturday, it would be very normal for me to play, you know, Basha Uhuru and at 5 o'clock, play somewhere in Pretoria, some intimate Estella tour, like acoustic gig, run back to a club, played Rockets at 11, play somewhere else at 12. And for a voice and for a body, and then for me to come back home, decompress, try be a full parent that's homeschooling my kids during the week.
You were home, my
I'm
goodness.
not homeschooling them myself, but
I was about to say, but still, it requires
I'm
a lot of...
facilitating,
Yes.
I'm thinking, I'm collaborating with their teachers and their tutors. I'm an involved parent, and my policy was also that if I'm with my kids, I'm 100% present. So I push myself as a mom. I had solo dates with my kids. I'm taking them for art on a Thursday. I'm taking them to sport in the afternoon. So I guess the burnout was, it's really, really intense on the weekend, but I'm seeking this balanced family life, which is also stretching me. And their dad is also extremely present and supportive, but I also wanted to be there and present and supportive and not leave the burden of having to care for the kids on one person, you know? So
If we then use the opportunity to touch on family life, because your whole career, like I said, has always been about the music, and you've never presented yourself as an artist that is trying to put her life out there. Like, your content has always been consistent about the messaging, what the song is about, what inspired it. Was that something you went into this intentionally saying, I don't ever want public life to touch into my private life, or it just happened organically that because it was always about the music, people didn't even ask you about your private life? And I think when I was much younger, starting as a child in this business, I just had the right person around me saying, what do you want people to talk about? And I said, the work. Then she said, then that's all you talk about. I mean, I was 17 or 16 when she had that conversation with me, just before my first TV interview. And I just assumed that's how it always is. And now almost 20 years later, I'm like, thank you.
it's very wise.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously I do share certain bits being on radio every day, but it's still curated vulnerability, as I like to call it. It is, because not all vulnerability, it's not my inner circle, it's not my secret self. Maybe I'll share bits of my private self, but people still get a curated version of what I choose to share with them. So did you walk into that with the intention of, I want this to be all about my music, or when you just started doing it, you're like, great, and you just never entertained anything outside of that?
You know, I think I just had so much to share at the beginning, and it was just I was so in love with the art form. I still didn't feel like I had enough time, or even I was creating the platforms to share everything that I had to share about the arts and the music, and I'm like such a geek as well, you know. I don't know if it was intentionally curated, but it became a decision that I maybe silently made with myself, that like I'm starting to have a family now. I've got children. I have a partner. I have a life that I want to protect, and because I love them and I want to protect them from things that they haven't chosen, I've chosen this life. In fact, for me, the expectation to even be in the public eye was never really there, and I think, you know, it's a byproduct of people just really connecting with the art, and I think that's the essence that I wanted to feed, you know. I'm still trying to come to terms with the fact that the byproduct of people being into something that I'm here to share, and that it's, you know, I'm here to do that. This is what I've been called to do. the result of it is that people want to know about your life. Like, I don't see how the two connect. And at the same time, it's like, I get people wanting to understand your values and your essence and wanting to know more about, you know, where you rest your head and what your kitchen looks like. I think there's so much to talk about. I'd get so annoyed. It was a time where I was visibly pregnant. I've had 3 kids in this 10 years of being in the industry. Visibly pregnant at an interview in some morning show. And honestly, we have 7 minutes. It's a morning show. I'm being interviewed because I've won an award. You have 7 minutes and you're going to ask me about my stomach. I honestly was like, do you ask the male people here about their 17 children when they come here and they've got 7 minutes to talk about an award themselves and some art? And so I became quite, you know, even in spaces where I'm literally about to pop, what is going on in my uterus has never been the reason that brought me here. And I think because I always felt like there's just not enough time, there's so much to share, I've always just, you know, used the time available to point it to the real thing, the essence of what I'm here to do, you know.
So look, let me play devil's advocate then, because I think I wouldn't say I experienced it on your level. I think I'm a lot more comfortable with people's curiosity about my private life. I mean, I know what the most Google thing is about me, and I'm not even going to say it because everyone else is going to try and Google it. It has nothing to do with my work. Yeah. But if we're to play devil's advocate on the sense that the nature of the business, even before you were in it, was to know that, okay, there's superstars like a Michael Jackson. There are very few superstars that were able to get by with people probing, without people probing into their private life. Maybe a Denzel Washington. I mean, he's kept it so cool. We know he has a wife, but beyond that, we don't really know much about him. So if someone is thinking, is it because you didn't think you would be that successful that people would be so curious about all of you? Or is it that you were hoping that what you are putting out there would make you an exception to the nature of the business?
I think, you know, because for 10 years, I really experienced people, even on Twitter, I was like, Twitter's not so bad. People are just tweeting my lyrics to me, literally for years.
Yes. Really? Just your lyrics?
I've never, for years. So for me, the first bit of information about my personal life being out there, being untrue, being something that made people be mean to, I was in utter shock. I do think it's because, like, I never really subscribe, I still don't really subscribe philosophically to this whole celebrity paradigm. I don't really believe in pedestaling people, like pedestaling them for their gifts. I think it's also it's a cry for help that in general society, that we're all meant to be intrinsically creative in the way that we walk our lives. And secondly, it's people not understanding that your gift as a nurse, as a person who's a teacher, it deserves that much praise. Like, it's bewildering to me that people that can hold a bat and hit a 4, and some people can hold a mic, there's more curiosity about what they do. Like, this whole celebrity culture for me is nuts. And because I've never respected or kind of just like always questioned its logic, you know, there's a part of me that I think was naive, to be fair.
So would you say, if people refer to you as a celebrity, you saying, I'm not a celebrity, I don't subscribe to that, what would you describe a celebrity as in your dictionary or your understanding?
I'm not, you know, I think it must be said that I appreciate all the love and the energy that is coming back towards me, and the interest and the you know, dare I say, even like, I've experienced it on such a positive spiritual level, how much love I get for being a musician and being a person who's concerned with the things that I'm concerned with. It is overwhelming. I don't know if I was built for it in this way, in the way that it expresses itself in modern day society. I do think that there's a part of me that needs to reckon with some of that energy, you know, having consequences. And so I don't know what to describe myself as. I can say, oh, no, I don't have fans, I have supporters. I can use all the jargon and I can run away from all the words. But if I don't subscribe to this philosophy, doesn't mean that I mustn't be realistic about what the implications are sometimes. And that's a lesson that is new. You know, when the shock came to me that people really care about this, they really believe this stuff, they really are interested. I'm like, we have an energy crisis. Why do you care about my life or my uterus or my, you know, like
in the bigger scheme of things.
In the bigger scheme of things, I'm like, why is this important? Did I not just, you know, and I still, like, it's a bit of a cognitive dissonance that I have with the way that we treat each other and the way that people treat themselves. And part of the pedestaling certain people with certain gifts for certain reasons is one thing, right? But then I also think tearing them down because you're bored and you need something to do because something, you don't want to deal with the reality of your life is also like, do these people really deserve this treatment? Do we really deserve to be cannon fodder for your boredom? Do we really deserve to be your playthings when you don't know what to do with your own inner world,
So I want to pause then from the whole private life becoming public and take a step back because I'm curious then about your journey. I mean, I think about all the interactions we had and we never ever spoke about if you're seeing anyone, if you're married or not married, do you have kids? We were always talking about music. Even when cameras are off and everything was off, we're talking about music. What was the journey then because it's almost 10 years in the business. When did you meet the then hubby and what was that whole journey like? Just to paint a context of how it all came to be.
Of course. Well, I mean, I got married really young, 2013 actually, and started a family almost a year later. I have 3 kids, 9-year-old girl, a 7-year-old girl, and a boy who just turned 5.
He's not in the biz?
No, he's not. He's a scientist and other things. But really just like a private person, and also for me, a sacred space that I wanted to protect with my life, including my children, I've got incredible children and they're so smart and they're so interesting.
Well, Dad's a scientist and Mom's like a musical genius.
He's a scientific thinker. And so, it's expressed itself in different ways. And also there are people that just, didn't choose a path that would bring this attention to them. And I respected that. I don't think that kids... we all have different philosophies about it. Some are like, be smart and start the Instagram account when they're in your womb. And I'm just like, have a conversation with them when they're 7 if they want this, or 14 or whatever, But I'm also extreme. Like I didn't pierce my kids' ears. I asked them. I spoke to them about it when they were able to express themselves. Some people are like, that's overboard. Just pierce the damn ears. So I don't know. It could just be me, but I really think... they didn't consent to this life, and I protected them also because I know I was wary of the space and I didn't trust the whole celebrity entertainment thing either. So I think preemptively and maybe almost instinctively, I was like, love here equates itself by fiercely protecting my privacy. I've got an amazing parents. I've got famous cousins. I've got an amazing sister. I've got a beautiful... My brother was one of my...
Which famous cousins
or
these famous cousins?
Many.
You've got famous... You're going to become the Janet Jackson who's telling us Stevie Wonder's the cousin and this, and we're like, how? Samuel L. Jackson?
Michael.
You have to tell us one. Come on.
Major League, they're my cousins.
Are they your cousins?
Such knobs. I love them.
How did we not know this?
Man, Msaki is not answering our messages. And she doesn't want to do the song. And I get a call from an aunt. I can't pendulum. I'm like, okay, I'll call them tomorrow.
Now they're calling a family meeting because you're not showing up to do the song.
They're so fun. I love them to bits. I'm so glad.
That's hilarious.
I'm so glad we related. But so many things that I have. My first best friend is my brother. He's 2 years younger than me, and he played rugby for the Sharks, and he played like junior Springboks. My sister is a South African ex-squash player. She was number 1 in the country for years and years and years and years, and has just gone and won bronze in the World Championships. For me, there was so much to share, but at the same time, it's like when you're crystal clear about your calling, I think it's a harnessing where you focus your energy on the thing that you're here to do, And so part of the family and whatever, and some people have this gift where they can bring everything into the fold, and I think that's really beautiful. I had one job and I still have one job, and it's to share love through creativity, music, and building community, and that's still my focus. And I'm pissed off that I ever have to talk about my personal life, for reasons that I'm not ready for or that I didn't subscribe for.
So why is it important for you to even touch on it now? Because you've really maintain that part of yourself of like, yes, I know I'm with child, but don't ask me about it. We've only got 7.
Got 7 minutes.
And again, you know, I was thinking about outside of the media asking about your belly, is it not like in our nature as people, even when you see a stranger, I've found when somebody greets me in the queue at the discount, I'm like, oh my gosh, how far? Like I get so excited. Is it a human nature thing as well? Or do you kind of feel like, yes, I get that you're curious and you're excited, but really we have 7 minutes and I just want to talk about the music?
That's pretty much it. That's really boils down to that. And I think it's also just females get treated differently in the space. You know, I don't want my body to be the site of your curiosity. I don't want what's going on in my, you know, in my inner chambers to be the topic of conversation.
I love the word inner chamber. Because I'm going to start using that.
In my inner chamber.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so why are you okay talking about it now, if you are okay talking about it?
I'm like I said, I'm still really upset that that's even a thing, because you know, right now I think we're talking about the, you know, just generally how celebrity culture works and all of those, you know, I even call it the C word, like I was allergic to using that word.
Yes.
I've grown up a little bit more now. But it's just, I guess I'm sharing my views holistically on that. And I think I found myself in a position where I've almost, you know, had to have this overshare hangover because I've had to address something that I felt like was someone else's business to address at some point. And, you know, the less that's said about that, the better. But we have a different burden as females, because when things are misconstrued in the public eye about our personal lives, it has devastating effects. Some of them we can count with rands and cents. Others we can't, you know, like not being able to go and bury my nephew because there was a rumor is like a devastating effect that I'll never get that time back. Because of whatever stigma is thrown to women, we get different names for different things that happen to us. So, you know, it doesn't affect the dudes as much.
So then let's create the backdrop of you're married, you have child number 1, child number 2, child number 3, and at some point that is not working out, right? When around was this happening?
So, yeah, married 2013, and yeah, like basically separated 20. In fact, you know, saying 10 years is hard, because it was in that 10th year when things really started clearly not working out. So 11, 12, 13, 2013, yeah. And I think it's always hard when a partnership ends up not working out and there's children there. And obviously, I never said to people, hey guys, I'm getting married. And I never said, hey, I just had my child. I just lived my life in a private way. So I didn't feel, there was no reason for me to say anything about a separation or moving towards a divorce and building a different life. And yeah, I mean, the reasons are so many, but they're complicated, and they also are personal. And I still feel that they are within my private life, but it's just, you know, it didn't work out. We both tried. I think I tried my best. My best friend even said, like, the kitchen sink knows your name, my friend. Like, siyakhulula, you know, and it's still something to mourn. And I think it hasn't been easy, you know, but the main thing is that there's a whole co-parenting relationship that needs to be maintained. There's
children's lives
and dignity that needs to be maintained. So when unhelpful, untrue rumors also come up in the midst of that, that's really not fair on the whole family unit. And the thing about this whole celebrity thing is that people can go through those things in private, and they can get the respect to go through difficult family transitions without people poking into their personal space. And I don't understand why we aren't able to get the same respect, you know.
So maybe share with us, because in a country like ours, people know married and not married, or married and divorced. They like to be a stickler for those details. What for you was a separation? Some people view a separation as we're taking time to figure how we're working this out, maybe in separate homes, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel you're hoping to get to. Some people see separation as we are in the process of getting divorced.
Yeah.
So maybe share with us what separation was for you, because maybe that will provide a bit more clarity of where you were at the time.
Yeah, no, so I think moving from separation to divorce has been a tricky journey because of the kids and trying to figure out like co-parenting. But I think for me, when we had gone through therapy and we had decided that we really are counseling out of the relationship, it was when the decision that it's a separation towards a divorce was clear. Like, and yeah, I think even at the end of 2022, that was a reality. Like, or beginning of 2022, sorry, that was like a reality that was set, that it's not going to be counseling, trying to make sure that the family unit is working the way that it was before. But,
so both of you are of the understanding that, because also we know, our legal system takes time. People can be getting divorced for years. So you both understood, okay, we're working towards getting a divorce. That's what our separation is. And in between, trying to figure out this transitional period of how to work best for the kids and co-parent.
Yeah, it was mostly logistical to make sure that the kids had time. But also, I think it's just such a complicated and delicate process. Like now, unfortunately for me, it's still such a difficult process also because when this came up, this I don't feel comfortable raising it myself. But
look,
yeah.
Okay, I will help you through that, because I know in general this is not something you like doing anyways. So at some point in your separation, you started a friendship with somebody whose name I will not mention at this point, but you started a friendship with somebody after meeting. This was now when 2022.
Trying to think what year. Okay, so Choice Awards.
Yes.
I think 2022.
It would have been 2022, I think, yes.
Yeah.
So you met there, became friends.
Okay, so I met him before, had interviewed me on his show when I released my album in 2021. And then the interview was also remote. There was a second interview when the album dropped, which was on air. I was in New York and they took the interview. And so I knew he was, but only really became friends and hung out. Understanding something else, which I can only look at from a different vantage point, I'd stopped chastising myself for the fact that this partnership that I really wanted to work, this marriage that I really wanted to work, because you make the choice. When you start realizing, oh, okay, maybe this wasn't my person, and maybe there's we're learning more about our natural compatibility, and letting go of it when you've decided that you've given it your all, and leaving all those reasons that you stay because you don't want to hurt the kids, and all of those things. I think we had both reached a place where we were comfortable. So I think the openness to see someone only came after that guilt had appeased and that time had passed when I knew that I tried everything that I could,
So what was your understanding then when you met him about his relationship status? And were you open with him about yours?
Yeah, so I think even just going back to the openness to even see someone that caught my attention. I think it was just like also an opposite personality to my introvert, like scientist, was just something that caught my attention. And then we just hung out and really hit it off and spoke about our lives, really just candidly. It comes up in the first conversation that he's separated. I tell him I'm also separated. And yeah, it kind of just really was just a friendship that grew really organically. I'm a person who's really playful as well, so just kind of being outside helped a lot and having something fun to do. And I think if I look back at the relationship, I understand if I can change that vantage point and look at what was this for, because it was all of 3 months.
I hear you, yes.
But it really lifted my spirits. It really reminded me who I was, because you kind of bury parts of yourself when you are in a space where you're trying to have minimal conflict because you're trying to fix something, and there's, if there's an incompatibility issue that comes up with you feeling like there's parts of you that it may raise less conflict if you raise this part of yourself so that there's equilibrium. And
so you're dimming certain parts of yourself.
Yeah, and that happens when you also aren't, understanding your own boundaries and understanding what you need. And it also comes as being a mother. You are always in a kind of sacrificial heart posture, And so just like when parts of me were unapologetically coming out and just being celebrated and playing outside, and you're like, all I ever wanted to do was play outside. And I found somebody who just lit that little girl part of me up,
Do you feel like he made you feel seen?
Yeah, in many ways. But I also think there was a general natural compatibility that was there. And it made friendship really easy. Obviously, the conversation about separation, and it wasn't just the conversation about separation, it was like, I've actually, instigated a divorce. There was already somebody assigned in court that was dealing with a family matter because they had a child. And so I've had a free heart. I know that in South Africa, if you're separated, you're legally allowed to be in a relationship. When I saw the relationship developing, I told my ex-partner that, look, I'm seeing someone. He said that, in fact, he went and did the same to his ex-partner, and I thought we were good,
I'm curious as to why you choose the word partner and not spouse or husband or wife.
Oh, I've always spoken, to partnerships, and in that way, I think also because I married a skeptic of marriage as an institution.
Really?
Both of us were not planning on getting married, but I think it was just, whatever initial compatibility was there, it was quite cerebral, and a lot of it was philosophical, the way that we saw the world, the way we wanted to raise children, a little bit anti-establishment as well. So I think, never really, I don't mind using the word husband or wife. He was my husband, I was his wife. So yeah, it's not a big deal, the semantics.
Now that you are, on that path, do you still believe in marriage for yourself, or do you still feel like I don't really subscribe to this institution? Or do you feel like if later on in life I feel like doing it again, I would?
I'm a completely hopeful romantic, and I just think that this was a journey towards finding, that person for me, and even this relationship that ended up everywhere was part of that, because like I was saying, as short as it was, it really reminded me who I was, and it reinflated parts of me that I had forgotten, and I'm grateful for that. It also hurt me terribly, but I do think that the good. In a way, the way I look at my spirit's journey and what maybe my soul is here to learn, because we learn a lot through relationships, I think that the good outweighs the bad. And I think that I contributed a lot of good and positivity. In fact, I think I only contributed good and positivity in the time that we were together towards this person. So
friendship turns into this could be something, with the understanding that you're both pretty much in the same positions of you're seeing... you're separated on the way to divorce, and now you're seeing one another. You've told your ex, I'm seeing someone, and your assumption is that he would do the same?
Well, he said that he did, and described the day that it happened, I was told. I've later learned that conversation, wasn't about just saying, there was because my assumption and my understanding and what I was led to believe was that when we started seeing each other, he was separated, but the conversation of the divorce and the initial movement towards that had a date. They weren't living together for months, and they were, moving the child between each other.
So just to clarify, because I think that's such an important thing to note, is at the time, you came into the picture with the train already moving.
Yeah.
The divorce train is already moving.
They hadn't been living together.
Yes.
There's a court, relationship with the court. There's a child custody matter that's in place. And part of my sensitivity also in, whether I was going to clear my name by using facts and dates and all that stuff was because of a sensitive issue that there's a whole, the child involved.
Yes.
And there's a sensitive family law matter here. And so... Yeah.
So then, so now this is happening in your mind. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So that's why you went in with a free and open heart.
Absolutely.
And you weren't going public about it because you never do that anyways.
I mean, we were out and about sometimes. I don't think South African journalists get paid well enough to be investigative journalists, you know.
To go and check who's got botanical
we
gardens.
were hanging out. We were kind of, you know, taking it easy also because I am a private person, but also knowing that you know, I went to go see him at his radio show a few times. There was nothing hidden or, you know, it was just really we're living our lives. Yes, it's a gray area because we're in sensitive times, but honestly, it didn't feel like there was anything considerably wrong that we were doing, and had a free and open heart in how the relationship was moving. And we were supporting each other through something that we both would understand. It's a very acute happening to both of us. And at that time, it even felt like a godsend. Oh, you know what I'm going through. I know what you're going through.
At least we can go through it together.
Yeah, the discreetness was also just about obviously making sure that we, even just considering the families, the respect that was there, we were just, you know, connecting on a personal level, and we hadn't involved families yet, but it was, you know, a relationship that we both felt okay and happy to pursue.
Was it at an I love you stage yet? Did the relationship get to I love
personal.
you? And the reason I want to ask is because it was hurtful for you, but some people's 3 months could be 3 months of this is just for fun times. I think I want to emphasize how real it was for you.
No, I think there was a lot of love there expressed both ways, and a lot of support. Very much supportive. And seeing, I think, past, you know, I really just thought he had such a great spirit, you know. And
look, he's got energy for days. In the interactions I've had with him, great energy in workspaces, even when it's not in workspaces, lights up a room, and all of those things.
I mean, yeah, really great person, and I think, you know, looking at someone's soul trajectory, it maybe was just for that time, but at the same time, it's what a horrible and painful lesson to learn through the thing that, I mean, I write love songs, and what was hurtful for me was that our personal, you know, one of our love letters ended up in the tabloids.
How did this happen? Please talk me through this.
That was such an intense violation of our personal space, you know?
So then take the step back. You are...
This is a person who's already terrified of this whole
yes.
machine, and the way that that my personal life lands up in the public sphere is through a love letter. I was like, is this some kind of joke, you know?
Look, J-Lo just gladly gave it out, her love letters. But on a serious note, because, you know, you can laugh about it in hindsight, and the laughing is at how ridiculous that was. It is such a violation of intimate personal moments that now have brought you to be forced to be talking about intimate personal moments. But what started going wrong? Because you're now living in, I'm going to call it a bubble, while you're still doing your music, still doing your thing. What was the first thing that went wrong?
Busy. I was actually very busy. I mean...
Was it a tabloid? Was it somebody saying, Msaki, what is this?
Yeah, no, so very, very disturbing. But I think a series of events where his place gets broken into by his ex. She trashes the whole place. And I was like, why? What's happening? This
so he was living separately in his own place? Yeah, living separately
in his own apartment. And this lady's mom is one of my good friends. And she said to me when she found out about us, she was like, you just need to know, you just need to be a bit careful, because if anything goes wrong, you're gonna go down for this, not him. And she was right. And that's
what did she mean by that? As in, if it goes out publicly, or because of her knowing her daughter?
I'm not sure. I really never understood what she meant. But she was a beautiful person who was really just you know, this never ends well for women. So just make sure that you're okay. I get it. I get why you guys are, you know, I get why you guys connect. It makes sense. But you know, yeah. So anyway, his place got broken into and trashed. I think that ended up in the tabloids because there's an article that precedes ours, and that's what happened. physically probably took the letters from there. But yeah, the source in the tabloids is an unknown source, you know. But yeah, another thing that I've been recently, my attention has been brought to recently, is that they were still sharing a family calendar, which is what, you know, he told me. And so the whereabouts and the movements could have been tracked through the Apple family, whatever it is that they were sharing, and that could also show messages or whatever. So it's interesting because a Polaroid that was only between me and him ends up on like Daily Sun with the letter that was taken during the break-in. And I was just like, if your thing ended before I was in the picture, why would you go and conflate these timelines and make me the reason for the end of your thing? And I thought if that was the truth and how it happened, really malicious. And I was upset that a person would do that without thinking that they're tearing down a whole other person's livelihood. And for me, at the time, I processed it as like, I told my partner, and as much as he's not thrilled, he's not going to stand in the way of my potential happiness, because life is complicated and we're trying to get to a point where we're respecting each other. This is why I'm also telling him, because we have to co-parent, you know. And I'm like, hey, there's someone in my life, I don't know, it might be something, it might not, but that's happening, you know. And it was a courtesy to let him know. And obviously he also was like, are you saying, you know, like, are you saying? And I'm like, yeah, actually. So when he went and said, and he did the same, my assumption was that she probably didn't take it well, that he's moving on and that he's potentially happier or whatever, and this is why this is happening.
So when you discovered the tabloids that, oh, letters are out, a Polaroid is out, what was like your question? Like, was it a what the F? Was that the conversation? Or were you still thinking, we're in this together?
No.
Let's discuss our next steps.
We thought we were in it together. He got a message from a tabloid saying this. They warn you, apparently, sometimes.
Yes, apparently they'll say tomorrow there's an article coming out. Would you like to comment?
Yes, that happened to him. And we were together when that happened. And I was like, well, are you gonna say anything? And I think, you know, the stance was always like, I don't speak to media. I don't talk to tabloids, you know. And I'm like, but this is going to come out saying that we've had an affair, and that's not, like, I'm not the cause for the... And I think, you know, it was explained, and I understood it, that if you speak back to them, they'll have more to say. Are you trying to open this rabbit hole? Like, it's tabloids. And I was just like, this is difficult, you know. And because it was sent to him, and it was his story, because it's actually his marriage that I supposedly ended, I was like, this is your story, get in front of it, you know. And my friends were furious. Like, my friends were like, I had to stop them from going to break his knees, you know, because they're just like, be a man, get in front of this. Like, how is this? And it came out. I think it got stalled by a week because they included the mother's name, and she's smart, and she went to them and was like, hell no. And so it got stalled, but I was just like, he's really not getting in front of this. And by then I had started organizing my PR team, my legal team, being like, no one's calling me to ask me if it's true. And it was just so difficult to know what to do, because it's like, it's not my story, you know, but I'm going to get affected by it. And that's when I understood, like, this could be a mess, you know. When the story came out, it was just the beginning of the end. Like, I still have a sick feeling in my stomach, you know.
Is the sick feeling that you feel like he should have done something to speak up early on, and something being, you literally could have said, yes.
She's got nothing to do with this.
Yes, she's got nothing to do with this. The relationship was coming to an end. Anyways, I've already instituted divorce proceedings. Please stay out of it. As in, you feel like, yes, your things have fallen to the tabloids, but I am not the reason.
I was expecting at least that, you know. Yeah. And I think because it was all so confusing, and I also was just like, this is unknown territory for me. I'm not used to having to deal with the stuff. Maybe it's better to just keep quiet. Maybe you don't feel the fire. Maybe it's going to be gone. You rationalize all sorts of things. But the bottom line is I didn't get in front of it. And it started a raging fire. I mean, for me, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking about the fact that, what if he loses his kid, you know?
In the process, yeah.
And part of me trying to assemble it, like, my own thoughts, thinking, do I say anything? Do I put out a statement? I remember even thinking, like, maybe we put one out together. Maybe all of those thoughts came up, and, you know, my legal team and my PR team was asking, like, can you ask him for, you know, paperwork, just to say when, just to kind of split the timelines and to make it very clear that months and months and months had passed before you even walked into this person's life, and that house had already closed itself, you know. And I remember just also feeling like it's really not fair for us to be having to share more personal information because of a lie, you know. But it also is difficult when the information could have found the public space because of a person in a personal space. So it was very difficult to make sense of, and I kind of had to just let it play out. And what looked like the higher ground was to just let the thing do its thing, because I was like, so then what do I say? This is not really my story. I'm living my life.
Because no media contacted you. No one was saying,
I wish they could have, because it affected me.
Msaki, is it true that you're having an affair? That wasn't what the story was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would have said if the article had come to me. I don't know if I would have offered more information. Maybe there's true. It's all just like a little bit twisted. And I think for me, it's also like journalism. Can you do due diligence? Maybe there's a court document that the public court, court records are public. If you're going to break a story that's going to break a family and break a reputation, can you do? And obviously that's not going to happen. No tabloid journalism expects that level of integrity. I was looking at it from a moral space. I was disappointed on so many levels, but it was happening. And yes, I took a responsibility for the fact that, yes, I'm in a relationship that's in a gray area, but we were honest with our partners, and I didn't hurt anyone, I didn't break anyone's home. So it's being reported as such, somebody could at least rectify that. If we're getting judged for being in a relationship while we separated, I can take that. That was my decision. But being
the reason for breaking a home.
But being cited as the reason that a home broke down, that is not fair. That has got nothing to do with me. He knows it. She knows it. Why am I in this mess? And also, it's like tabloids know that we don't know anything about Msaki for 10 years. We just know that she likes writing songs. This is going to catch a fire. It's going to be clickbait. It's going to be... So that also just like my anger towards the whole like media machine was just like, you guys just break families and break reputations and don't care for the consequences. I even explored my options in terms of like suing them. And I went through so many things, you know, and obviously like a lot of people stuck with me, and a lot of brand relationships, a lot of personal relationships that I had so much support. But there's some people that were like, you know, I lost a lot. I lost like a lot that can be quantified that I know of that was in my hands at least 10 bar that just, you know.
So 10 million rands that you lost in the period of how long?
2 months, 3 months. And also some of them was like, because the thing starts affecting my momentum as an artist and my ability to even have energy to do those 7 shows I was doing in one weekend, we started, you know, pulling back on some shows. If they hadn't paid a deposit, I cancel it. If I just started returning, because now there's this other thing to deal with that's taking me away from the essence of why I'm here, which is my art. And I'm getting angry about it. And then we're still trying to be in this relationship where I'm trying to understand, like, okay, your choice is not to speak to media, you know.
What was he saying, though, about the impact it was having on you? What was he saying?
I mean, once it came out, it had, you know, obviously it exploded, but then the bullying started and the name calling and I firstly was in shock. And then secondly, I was like, people are being for real. And then secondly, I was just like, oh, that's it. That's what's happening. Like, I've been given a name now.
And what is that name?
A homewrecker. Like things that were just like, okay, fine. That's what's happening. And then I was still trying to be like, okay, well, how does this feel for you? You know, because that's happening to me. That's my reality now. You know, and are you going to say anything to clear my name? And obviously, when the answer was like, I don't speak to, I started seeing that as a privilege. That ability to not speak to media, it was a privilege that, you know, that I felt like he enjoyed now, because what's happening to you is that you're, you know, more people like your followers are increasing actually every day, whereas I'm being called names and I'm being dragged into an emotionally a morally bankrupt space, you know, and even the authenticity of my work is being questioned. The work that I've been sharing for the past 10 years, like before
especially
I even met
like
you.
If people see you as a positive beacon of light, it's like, oh no, we've been listening to lyrics from a home record. It can't match up. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like my integrity being questioned, and, you know, when I'm supposedly sharing from an authentic space. I found it a bit unfair. And that's what led to the end of the relationship. I was like, I don't know if I can stay here while I'm watching you not protect me, while this is my reality, and you seeing that I'm losing things, and this is upsetting me, and it's affecting me mentally, and I'm still trying to like understand that it's a tough thing for you because you don't speak to media, you know. Okay, I understand. I might have to think about how I speak to it because it's ruining my life, actually. And I left it for a while and tried to carry on with my life, and I just kind of...
Was this now when you guys had fully now parted ways, or you were still trying to make it
No,
work?
we parted ways after maybe a month. The article came out like sometime in November. I don't even know, October or something. A month later, we were done. I still had work to do. I still had to tour. I went through my busiest season, but I already knew, like, there's something is not right. Like, I'm not okay. Then you know, it was almost like the reckoning that I needed, or the detonator that happened when I realized I'm too busy. I'm doing too much. I'm not seeing my kids enough. You know, and I just was just like, okay, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna. I need to take a pause. Like, this is not, you know, this is not how it's supposed to go. Like, this is not how I'm supposed to be moving with my gift. So in some instances, even though it was a very nasty explosion that got my attention, I do think that my spirit had been trying to tell me, you're tired. You need more balance. You know, emotionally, there'd been like some alarm bells. Like, you need to think about. And so maybe, you know, I don't know. It's just me speculating, but it did get me to sit down and to do a little bit of a reassessment.
I'm just curious, did he fight for you?
No.
So
when I told him that it's done.
That you're done, yeah.
I don't think so. I think he understood that I was hurt, but at the same time, it was just like tunnel vision. Like, I need to, you know. He also really seemed like he'd been through a lot with this relationship as well, and just with trying to make his life as a dad work. So I just didn't take it, you know, I took it personally because I was like, well, you didn't fight for me, but in the way that made sense for my life. But at the same time, it's just recognizing that it's a heavy situation, and try to move on with a heart that wasn't too heavy.
Look, and I'm in no way trying to make this a space where anybody's being discredited or sending hate in their direction or anything like that, in you sharing your story, which is, you know, your experience of what you went through. When you look at the timelines, when you look at the conversations you had, when you look at how things played themselves out, do you feel like he was not fully honest with you?
I don't know at this point. I mean, all I was wanting at some, you know, I mean, this came up again because it came up in another interview, and again, it was just like this overexposure hangover that I felt. And after that conversation, in that other space, I really just felt like I needed to just disappear and just like...
Are you talking about when you were on podcast and chill? Because you had a conversation there as well.
It came up, and I addressed it to a certain extent. And I remember just feeling that like, oof, this is not easy. Like, this overexposure feeling that I have is hard. But at the same time, I feel like it addressed and it left a semblance of, you know, the truth has its own spirit, and it's been helping me. The fact that I addressed it, even with some of the, you know, things that were difficult in my relationships and my family. I mean, it's just, I wasn't gonna have the courage to bring it up in some spaces, and now I feel like that conversation came up again, my name came up again. It was another opportunity to say something, you know, to speak the truth. And I think that life sometimes presents the same lesson to you over and over. And not so long ago, I got really mad thinking about like how this actually happened and how it keeps like, it's a footnote to my name. And I was just like, listen, I really want to understand, like, are you really never going to say anything about this? And also thinking about how I felt like it was quite malicious, you know, how the information went out. I was like, let me explore my legal options to see how I can actually just clear my own name. because as much as I needed time to get untired and to regenerate and to sort of be away from the public space, I'm still mad that there's an untrue thing in the history of my, like, me being here. And I think I have the right to get that addressed. And I reached out to him and I was like, are you willing to have a conversation about this? And he did. And some of the things that came up there, casually...
As in you two privately talking after the fact, just for you to get some answers.
I really just was just like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna see what my options are with this publication that had started this ripple effect, because it wasn't true. You didn't stand in front of it then. And I'm also going to see what my potential, what rights I have in somebody taking and stealing personal information and sending it out with the intention to make the story this way when the information is with you, because it's your life and you know when your thing ended, right? So I still had that in the back of my mind that, like, man, this was really malicious. Like, it's not fair that this happened, and it keeps affecting me, you know, as I'm trying to do things and I'm moving on with my life and I'm doing things and I'm running my foundation and I'm working with children. I'm like, I don't know if I like this thing attached to my name, and I actually have the right to not have it there. It's my right, because that's the truth. So when I reached out, he was like, okay, I'm willing to have a conversation with you, and casually mentions that he, you know, addresses this issue in a podcast. And I'm just like, you spoke about it in your podcast. You've got to be kidding me. Like, and not in a way that gets in front of it for me. And there, the story gets a little bit like, maybe I was cited as the reason for the separation, moving to a divorce.
Oh,
so
as in, like, there's a possibility what you were being told.
So now I'm confused and I don't know, and I'll never know. And so I've come to just, like, you know, accept that
this is where it's at.
It's as grey could ever be. It's greyer than these couches. And as life keeps offering you the opportunity to get in front of a thing and tell the truth, I think it's also just to know that, you know, it's your privilege to be able to not comment and to say things, but it's like your silence and your peace can sometimes come at somebody else's expense. And it's been at mine, you know.
Look, and unfortunately, women are treated differently. When it comes to so many situations in interpersonal relationships. And it is a pity, especially if you're working with family brands and things like that don't want to, you know, back away. And I think when I look back at what the mother had said to you, your friend, what did she last say to you? Because obviously she saw what was happening. Yeah.
Well, after that interview with McG, she reached out and she was like, hey, you know, you want to sit down with his ex? And I was so upset.
And have a conversation.
Yeah. She was like, yeah, it might be in your best interest, just like here. And I think I was just so upset and just so disgusted by the whole thing, and the fact that I had to clear my own name and I had to start talking about this private thing publicly because it had gotten out in a way that wasn't true. And I just was just like, okay, guys, it's just overwhelming. Like, and in that time, I remember still feeling like a victim, you know, and feeling like I don't really want to sit around. I don't want to do anything. I don't want anything to do with all of you, actually. You know, like you're my friend. Thank you for looking out for me. But like, I just want to be done with this thing. I want to move on with my life. I need to take a hiatus. I need to take a break. I really just need to, like, you know, I don't want to entertain it any further. So
you never had the conversation?
Never had the conversation. But yeah, like, just she's always been super supportive. I ran into her again at some like Bridgerton thing. It was just beautiful to see her. We spoke about other things, about life, you know. And yeah, I guess an attempt to move on, because she knows my heart and she knows that I never try to break anything, you know.
So where you are now, because so many things are still grey, would you be open to hearing her side? Because what if she does provide clarity to say, this is what I was told, which what I was told could have been, we're taking space to miss each other and work on things, let's say. We don't know.
I don't know.
Would you be keen to hear it, or do you feel like too much has happened that you just want to move on? It's insignificant at this point.
I mean, it would make sense why a person would go and like just go balls to the wall and like take all the information and send it I would be open, but at the same time, it's really painful. And for me, it's just unfair, the whole thing. I think if I'm going to be judged, can I be judged for the truth, you know? And yeah, it feels like I would never want to intentionally hurt another woman and her family like that. But at the same time, it seems like, you know, it might be late to fix anything. But yeah, I don't know.
Before we talk about your hiatus, before we sat down for this conversation, the team and I Googled your name and his name pops up. It's no longer like Fit Your Life. And
so unfair.
And your name pops up when his name is Googled. How do you move past that?
It's really unfair. I think it's so like giving yourself for 10 years and that being the footnote in your career, in anything that you do, whether it's positive or... I think it's really unfair. I think... I don't think it deserves that much weight, honestly. I understand how it happened, and I understand my part in it. Maybe the naivety, maybe I also think that I'm allowed as a person to live through my grey areas in a way that is dignified. I would never live through my grey area if I knew that it was infringing on someone else's grey area. But I feel like it doesn't deserve to overshadow the contribution that I've tried to make in the art forms that I care about.
So before we move on from this particular chapter in your life, which is very much still ongoing in terms of the ripple effects it's had on you as a person, your career, your family, what is your current marital status? Are you officially divorced yet, or is that still ongoing? Well,
this situation also didn't make it easier. So it's been prolonging a process that was already difficult. It's become longer now because of other difficulties, but still separated, living in separate places, co-parenting and making sure that we put the kids first. But yeah, long road, it seems.
Do you know if his divorce has been finalized, or you don't know anything in that regard?
No, he said it's been finalized when I tried to figure out, how I'm going to figure out speaking up for myself. Yeah.
Do you believe him that it's done?
I do. I don't think he would lie about a divorce. That's
So at some point, Spirit said to you, you need to calm down, you need to pause.
Yeah.
And you announced that you were taking some time out, but that came out as she's retiring, she's leaving music. Maybe clear it up, because maybe we don't know what hiatus is.
That's hilarious.
What the translation, because my team and I, every time we're like, we add, let's put Msaki on this proposal or this presentation. No, she's not doing me. Take Msaki off. I'll be like, yay, we will check. Where is she? Let's call. So clarify for us what it is in a way that a caption on Instagram will never, ever express.
Yeah, I blame Angie Motsacha for comprehension skills in the general public. I also think that Twitter's not the real place to get information. It's been lovely not being there for the last 2 years.
You've been off for 2 years?
Yeah. I mean, I was used to people tweeting me my lyrics, and then I was being called things, and I was just like, you know what? Maybe this, I don't need this at all, actually. Yeah, I know, like, I've been... I said, in, I think, January 2023, could have been just, I remember January 2023. When
I texted you.
You did. You texted me. You're so sweet.
Good luck for your next chapter. Yeah.
Yeah, I just was like, I need to take a break. I announced a hiatus. Never, ever used the word retired. I need to be shown one place where I say that I'm retiring, like one. I've never... I do, think because I announced my hiatus and I still had a whole thing to finish. Like, I had my last gig was in April. I announced my hiatus, and I think I needed to draw a line for myself to be like, no more after this.
Oh, as in... I'm telling you in January that I'm going to be taking a break. But maybe the confusion was, but you're still gigging. It
was very clear. It was like, I'm doing my last gig. I remember it was Gunye in April, which was my last electronic gig. I did like one special thing in New York that I'd promised by coffee I'd go to. And then I also did the last band gig I also announced was going to be National Arts Festival, where I was accepting the Standard Bank Young Artist of the Year award, and I had really like composed all these new works for it. I was working with a choir, so I was really like having to rest and gather my energy to go give that offering, because it was part of accepting the award that I'd been given the year before. So even if I was tired, I couldn't cancel that, you know. And it was a full circle moment that really healed me. Well, maybe hopefully we can talk about it. But I really needed to draw a line in the sand for myself, for my sanity, to be like, past this date, no more. And I was trying to tell people that really cared, like, I've got a few dates left in these places. I don't know if I'm coming back anytime soon. You know, it was part of that as well, just telling the people that cared that you're not going to see me for a while, you know.
So just to clarify, the not going to see me is performing at gigs.
Yeah.
Was it interviews? Because maybe the confusion was what the not going to see me is going to be, because maybe one might be thinking, we're not going to see you on social media, we're not going to see you. And how the hell did you afford this thing so I can do it too?
Yeah,
the
so
hiatus thing.
Stopped all gigs after that last one. And
did that include writing gigs?
So I write all the time. That's I have a whole other career as a songwriter for other people, and part of it includes spending a lot of time in Los Angeles, where I'm trying to develop a career as a songwriter. That wasn't making me tired. That was really feeding my spirit. Being on the road and being away from my family and being everywhere was kind of thinning my perspective on things and thinning energy levels. I also think there's a part of me that functions really well as a creative in general, but I don't think I'm always meant to be a front-facing. I don't know if I'm a performer. I don't know if that's part of my calling. I know that there are certain songs that I have to deliver myself, but writing is kind of like a knee-jerk, me breathing. I'm writing to be myself. Like, I'm writing through the mess and the joy. It's not always songs. It's not always, but I'm a songwriter, you know, and some of the songs that I write are not always for me. So I did take a break even from that, like intentionally being in the studio, going to sessions, writing for other people. But I've been carrying on with that because I think what I needed was to just have like a still, quiet life. So I haven't been on stage is the main thing. And I haven't, you know, I took quite a long break from social media as well. Now that I've, you know, obviously been doing the other work that keeps me busy, I run a foundation, I run a space called Out Black Continua, where I, you know, support independent alternative artists. I train, you know, I've got a team of 7 people, 6 of them are Black females. And there's a lot of work that we do, you know, for this community that I'm part of, you know, as a person who started out as a folk musician and a singer-songwriter, storyteller. There's a lot of people that are in the community that we serve. So I've needed to come out and share about that stuff. I needed to come out and say I'm picking up, you know, my life as a person who's running retreats. So all these other things made me think, okay, I can pop my head up and really just be like, well, this is what I'm doing. And I also had so much work to share retrospectively. Like, if I never had to write another song, I would be releasing songs for another 5 years.
Wow.
I've written a lot. I'm in love with music. I wrote so much. And I think part of my heartbreak was like, I'm here with a hard drive full of songs that are designed to get you up in the morning, that are designed to help you through your darkest moments, and you're gonna do no research and call me a homewrecker. You know, like, there was a part of me that really had that knee-jerk, I'm hurt because you guys don't see me and what I'm trying to do. This is all I've given, you know. And I don't know if I'm entitled to that either. I think I'm also needing to accept the confusion that comes with the complications of the space, you know. And it made the jab to my heart that much more painful. And I think over time, like, if I really look back now, there's a little bit of a thick skin that I've developed through this. And I think if anything else had to happen that was true or untrue, or my personal life being, it wouldn't dilapidate me internally the way that this did, you know.
So if I understand you correctly, you are saying that you also felt betrayed by the people for just slapping this label on that nullifies all the other things that you have done. Firstly, because the label is untrue, but also because that become the sole focus of your existence, and you are so much more than that.
Yeah, I was disappointed, but at the same time, I know that my lens was tinted by my absolute shock, you know. And I think when I really look back and I think about like, because I also wasn't looking at everything that was going on, and part of that was that I missed the support. I saw it and I felt it when I saw people in person. But in terms of what I was like looking at and how people were reacting online, I missed people saying, we don't care, or we don't, which is also weird. But also just the people that were just saying like, oh, but her work, but we love, okay, we support you, oh, we're here for you. There was so much love, and there was so many people that were standing up for me, and there were so many people that were wanting me to feel held in that moment, but I just felt like the rug had been pulled under my entire existence, which wasn't true. Like that's not really what was happening, but I can appreciate that now with a better understanding that like, whatever, like maybe this is how my ego death got orchestrated, I have to get into a spaceship and go to another vantage point to look at my timeline in a way that doesn't judge it and just accepts it and wants to understand like what the heck was I supposed to learn from all these things, including my, the end of my 10-year marriage and the beginning of this and the space that I'm in now, where I'm like, what are the lessons? It's only then that it makes sense. On that level where it was happening to me, makes absolutely no freaking sense.
Or what could you have done differently? Like, knowing what you know now, is there really anything different you could have done?
I don't think I was capable of doing anything different. I mean, I can speculate and say I could have done this and that. I was moving through my life like a human being. And this is part of why I think the space is a little bit unfair, when people can hold their own grey, their own dark and light, in the balance and give themselves and understand what they're walking through and hold themselves with so much grace. And then just because I happen to be on your iPhone and I'm on your playlist, I don't deserve the same grace, and I don't deserve to be held in the same dark and light and grey, where you speculate like what could have been happening, people can extend that grace to themselves without in a heartbeat. You can do it when you know your friend's story.
Or maybe they can't extend themselves that grace. That's why they can't extend it to you. Maybe. They are projecting the lack of grace they're able to extend for themselves. I mean, my view is that people that are hateful are 10 times harder on themselves than they are on other people. It doesn't look that way because you're on the receiving end, but misery loves company.
It's possible. I mean, I think if a person really knew that by retweeting something that is not true, you're wrecking, a conversation that I started for 4 years with a foundation that was going to build a music academy in your neighborhood, you wouldn't send that tweet. You don't have that perspective though, because you're just like bored entertaining yourself and retweeting some person who's reducing us to a moment, to an article, to clickbait. In that moment, you're just resharing that. That's all you think you're doing. You don't know that consequence, for me, it means that I can't build the school that I've been planning to build for my community. And I just want people to be aware of that. At the same time, I want to acknowledge that my grace for myself has increased, I think. My own compassion, my own self-compassion, and also the compassion that I have for the people that were really trying to show me love and hold space for me, even in the mess. Like, part of this, reflecting on the 10 years that I've been in this industry is really seeing those lighthouses, and my song of gratitude reverberates for them, and it reverberates for the people that are not going to let the things that I've offered before get tainted by a small blip in the matrix.
The hiatus is still ongoing.
Yeah.
Is there a fear of being on the stage, or is it still about energy preservation and balance? Because some might say, what if though you just picked 2 gigs a year, 2 important gigs a year? Why did it have to be all gigs?
I think undoing and really just getting back to a point of zero. I was in the minuses in terms of my fatigue levels, and also my disillusionment and my bewilderment with how my gift has landed me here. If this is zero, I was here somewhere in the minuses. I'd like to get back to some sort of equilibrium. I am doing something that just like really pours my heart out, just to have that fragrance of gratitude laid out for people on their feet. But after that, I don't have a lot of answers about what's next. I really have got to build these other things that demand my attention. And And yeah, maybe when I return, you know, or if I return to the space in this way, it will have that balance in mind, where it's like you will see her 4 times a year at these places. And I think also my sense of success, it's so rooted in that concept of family and balance, you know. I have this memory where after I took my hiatus, I had gone to my friends, one of my friends that I grew up with, my best friend from varsity. We've got kids that are the same age. And we have another friend. It was actually her kid's birthday party. All, you know, it's 3 girls, they're all the same age. And I went to the little sister's birthday party. And now, after not having a weekend free for 4 years, I'm not even kidding, your friends stop inviting you to stuff, you know? And the fact that I got an invitation to that party was because they knew that, like, okay, she might have a bit of time because she's taking a break. And I hadn't been to any of her birthday parties since she was alive. She was turning 4. And I was in the pool with my son, he's now 5, but he was a bit younger then. And I just realized like it's a Saturday afternoon and I'm in a pool swimming with my kid and I'm at my friend's birthday party, my friend's kid's birthday party. And I just broke down in the pool and just started sobbing.
I want to break down for you because of what that moment would have meant to you.
I mean, I looked around and I was like, okay, there's a floating flamingo. There's surely, you know, why am I so raw, you know? And it was also not too long after I'd had that interview with McG, I'd seen some like Daily Sun posters about, you know, I saw my name and I just looked away. But I just felt so sad that I hadn't fought for balance, that now if that is not what my life looks like, I don't know if I want the success, you know.
Sure.
It has to fit within it has a portion and it can fill up 40% of my life maybe. The rest of it needs to be filled up with purpose work. It needs to be filled up with my time with my family. It needs to be filled with making sense for my friends. I've been patching relationships in the past 2 years that I wasn't able to maintain over that time, where people understand because you're busy and you some star. But it's actually not fair for you for your life and your kind of energetic movement and the choices you've made to be understood and your story to be understood, and you don't know what's happening in people's lives. I was finding that I was letting myself down by not being able to show up for people that I cared about in a way that made sense.
But the real ones are still there. They understood and they are still there.
No, they did understand. But I think there's a boundary, an internal boundary now that I have for a threshold for what success can look like. And if it's not happening within that 40%, I'm not interested in it.
Ooh, that's a tough one. And I think many people strive for that, for you to be in a position that you can be doing other things that can sustain life. How are the kids doing? I mean, you've got one who's a little bit older. Were they ever exposed to the mess that played itself out in the media and on social media? No, but it's one of the reasons why I'm feeling like, actually, I shouldn't have to just accept this untrue footnote as part of my story, because my kids are going to be, you know, on the internet Googling whatever if they haven't already. And I don't know if I want them to find that as the story about me. It's not fair, you know. I think I worry about them. I worry about what they'll find. That didn't affect them. They were in a different space, in a different, you know, schooling system. I love the fact that, like, we just really raised them intentionally to be part of communities that are sound and safe, you know. But we can't protect them from forever. And I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about, like, those things that they'll encounter that are not true about me. If anything, even if those conversations remain the things that are Googled, they will get to see you standing up for yourself. I have a bittersweet feeling about that, because even, like, we were having this conversation and I'm having this out-of-body experience, being like, I cannot believe that I'm having to talk about internal matters in this way. But at the same time, thinking about my kids, I'm doing it for them. The fact that I couldn't, you know, activate that work that I needed to do with the foundation because there was a vote of no confidence in my character because of an untrue article breaks my heart. And I owe it to my kids to stand up for my reputation. And I maintain that if you're an integrous person and you don't realize that your privilege of keeping quiet is wrecking someone else's life, there's a part of me that says, are you really trying to leave it better, actually? You know? And there's a part of me that's also saying,
I'm only saying something because I have to, and I have to think about my future, and I have to think about my children. If I had it any other way, the same way that I didn't say, hey, I'm getting married, hey, I've got a kid, hey, I'm getting divorced, I would not have said anything about my life. But I'm having it to defend my honor, you know, in the absence of somebody else defending my honor. It is what it is. But for my children, I think I'm okay with them witnessing me standing up and saying, that wasn't true, actually. I'm willing to take the blame for this, but this I did not do. My kids are also very perceptive, and they're also very, really spiritually connected to me as well. And they felt it when I was going through that. I was a shell of myself. I had to fight and claw my way back in terms of just like my mental health, because I was dealing with a breakdown of sorts as well. You know, I was dealing with a burnout and a breakdown that happened simultaneously, and I got to rock bottom and had to kind of just like refigure out, you know, what's important. And I'm grateful for that ground zero moment that I had. I feel like it was expensive. That's why I'm saying that on that vantage point, I don't understand it. Only when I take like a step and I try and look at it from a different vantage point does it make sense. And part of it was, you know, I'm a person who's learning how to voice their needs within conflict. I'm a person who's learning how to draw clear boundaries. It's a very late lesson for me. I've always swept things under the carpet for the sake of peace. So it's, I think, a lesson that hopefully will serve me in terms of being their mother as well, and the things that I pass on to them, that it's okay to say, this is what I need, this is what I won't take, this is not true, this is not for me. But yeah, it's not a nice way to have to learn the lesson.
You're sitting with 5 years of music. So even though you are on a hiatus in terms of being on stage, are you still planning to just continue releasing?
Yeah, I mean, I've got so much music, but it's also because I've been serving other people's projects. So just because I was like, oh, guys, I'm out, you know, it doesn't mean that I can't release my song with Nomfundo Mo. Her album just dropped, and my song is on that. We did it a year ago. I've got, you know, bodies of work that are also the byproduct of friendships.
Yes.
So it's not fair for me to say, don't release that. I'm not interested in being in the public eye anymore in this way. There's lots of music, you know, and I've got music that I've written for other people, but I've also got music that is still for me to release because it's got my stamp and my essence that I have to share directly as me. And I don't know, like, I don't have a plan for all of it, but it has to come out. So, you know, I know that bored people will be like, oh, you know, retirement. I've got music. Must I not release it?
No, I hear you. I hear you completely. And I think you've clarified it so well. So in terms of how you feel right now in this moment, having spoken about things that you really don't walk around having the intention, do you feel relief? And if people still walk away from this conversation saying, I don't care, get home, Reka, how does that make you feel?
I mean, it's obviously not great, but it's also like, at this point, I can't take on a judgment that is not based on fact, you know. So for me, if your logic is leading you down a path where you want to put a label on me, it's really not my portion to try and convince anyone in that way. I know that I'm doing this for reasons that are, you know, pertaining to the fact that my integrity is in the balance, and I can only do so much. Those are not the people I'm trying to convince. If you're in that group, you really energetically aren't. I'm not gonna turn you with this chat, you know, and maybe you're not my concern as well. So it's okay. Like whatever makes sense for your logic. But I think there's a part of me that feels like the truth really does have a spirit, and I do believe that it settles in a way in people's hearts or in people's psyche where they can make their own decision from from their own point of view. But at the same time, I don't know if I can share more. It's already feeling like an overshare, and part of me is doing that because I am not accepting the label, and I refuse to accept it. I may have been something else, maybe, but not a homewrecker. So,
and I have to say, I can tell from your energy that it's still quite a hurtful thing for you, like outside of, you know, how it came out and all of those details. This was still something you were going through in your private life on the back of coming to terms with one thing ending, a new chapter starting, and then it's like everything kind of crumbled. And I just want to acknowledge that it doesn't just go away because you said this has ended. I can still feel that it's still a painful experience for you with a very bitter aftertaste, in the sense that no one wants to go that. Like, it's hard enough having to put yourself out there through your music, ready for people to say this is a terrible song or a great song. And now for people to look at you as a person and say Msaki is, and reduce your whole life experience to that.
I mean, there's a part of me that's also knowing that there's an absurdity to this space that will make you vulnerable to certain reductions. I just hope that people will make, you know, better internal decisions about those reductions. Maybe reduce me to something else. I do think it hurts me still, but I have to find a way to move past it, because I know that it doesn't define me. Looking back at the time that I've had to be able to make music and the privilege that I've experienced when people really let me in, I also know that, like, when people come to a show and they fill a venue and they pause what they're doing and they open up their sort of spiritual space to bask on the things that I've been thinking about in my private time, in my quiet space, like, what is that space? That is a very sacred space. It has more power than a space that's not true. It has no power than a space that's also like, that's also reduced and also is flat, and that's also, you know, broken, and that's also having no grace for itself. So I have to believe that there's more out there that makes more sense and has more powerful than these other things that come as a byproduct of being, you know, in the public eye. If I don't believe that, I'm not gonna have the impetus to sing those encouraging songs. I have to believe that the people that I'm here to serve, you know, also have discernment, you know? And I think that's where I'm gonna leave it, because I do believe in that, and I do believe in that love more than I believe in the misconstrued, you know. I also understand that life is not perfect, and I'm happy to be judged for my decisions in the gray area. Absolutely. I'm also very aware that that is not your business still. It shouldn't be in your space to judge, first of all, because the things that people are going through are in nobody else's space to judge either, except the people they choose to have in those conversations. It makes me so, like, it's, you know, like, also just like social media culture is so wild when people speak with their chest and say, yeah, I know her ex and I'm just like, where do people get the gall to make themselves witnesses? If they climbed inside of my walls, heard a conversation and decided, and they make themselves prime witnesses. That stuff is delusional, and there's a real worry that I have that, like, that's normalized in this generation, where people just like pipe up and say something as if they had a front row seat to your personal, intimate life. Wild. Obviously, I get the idea that you shouldn't be speaking back to those people, but man, like, there's that essence of me as well. That's just like, the audacity is unmatched. The part of me that has that, you know, reflex is alive and kicking. And it is literally me neutralizing myself and choosing the higher ground when I say, actually, there's more love.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad we are wrapping up the conversation on that note, because I do think there is more love.
Yeah.
And if anything, maybe this whole experience was just to filter out things from your life, people from your life that needed to be left behind for the next chapter. So I stand by my words to you.
Yeah.
I will always be a fan of your gift and what you do and what you bring. I'll never forget that folk singer that was in studio bringing a harp in there and just so excited about the music and sharing it with the people. And I think, I mean, you are a big deal. You've worked with Calvin Harris. You've worked with international stars.
No, not Calvin Harris, Diplo.
Oh, you see,
I like Calvin.
I need to, maybe I'm manifesting it to the universe. Calvin Harris, call her and work together. Nice. But you have elevated yourself to a space where the music is going where it needs to go. So I'm just grateful you felt safe enough to come and sit and share. And I hope you're never in a position where you feel you have to do that again if you didn't want to. And as always, we share love and light, not just for you, but also for the little babies, from a mom to another mom.
Yeah.
That is another space that we try to protect, because they're also little spiritual, creative beings. And we hope that we don't damage them with the choices that we make in our lives and the ripple effect of it. But in closing, what are your final words that you'd like to share with everyone?
I mean, I have a really strong sense that, my life is weaving a story, and one of my like really good friends' mother, Jessie Clegg, her name is Jenny. She likes to call me and her son and Johnny.
Yes.
She says we're meaning junkies, and we suck the marrow out of life, and we're always looking for meaning. And I think if I wasn't writing meaning to everything that happens, I wouldn't feel creative, and I wouldn't feel the magic of wanting to like weave poetry into the stuff that we go through. Firstly, I just want to say thank you to like creativity and music and Source, for carrying me through the good and the bad. Like, if I didn't have this ability to sort through these difficult things by writing, I don't know if I'd be here, There's a part of me that's still trying to. I was in that busy period. I couldn't mourn Zahara's death. I was like all over the place, and it just didn't land. And we're almost the same age. And I think about it often when I think about how I had to really like rescue myself from the depths of crashing mental health. That like, I'm still here, and I still have a very clear calling, and I'm trying to renegotiate myself to the place where I'm the vessel that I know that I'm supposed to be. And I think I'm grateful for that. That's the essence of that's the essence of me. Like, I'm here to serve, and for some reason I feel sad that I lost sight of that, but at the same time I'm holding it with so much more. I'm holding it with soft hands, that ability and that charge. Wake up at 3, like write the song, write the prayer, to get yourself through the thing and then give it away, because that's what you're here to do. And I think that's all I want to focus on. I feel like with the time that I have left, I really, really just want to get well so that I can get back to my purpose and do what I was sent here to do. Sorry.
It's okay. I think even you bringing up Zahara, maybe, thinking about so many unsung songs, so many unwritten songs, and how the gift didn't get a chance to live on. The gift didn't get a chance to live on. We can hear the sounds of rain. You being such a spiritual person, what do you think that represents for us right now in this moment?
Oh, well, I mean, my first album is called Zaneliza, How the Water Moves. And it's about rain, and it's about bodies of water, and it's about tears, and it's about how they're not here to betray you. They're here to release you, and how water cleanses if you allow it. So I think it's just a reminder, that...
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And let the music and the words speak for you. Let the music and the words speak for you. And I will continue to support you. Thank you again for coming into the space on our very first episode, of which we literally just wanted to allow the conversation to flow. And we will keep following you on Instagram, waiting for you to announce where we're going to go watch you sing when you are ready, and listen for the new releases as well. And I hope that everybody watching gets to see your heart through all of this.
Thank you.
That's episode 1 with Msaki. And comment down below with any of your comments or questions. Let us know who you'd like to see on the show. They're going to be different kinds of conversations. Not all will be teary, not all will be funny or fun. I think this is just a great space to connect with people, with one another, and just having conversations. But thank you so much for joining us on the very first episode of the Relebogile Mabotja Podcast. Make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you next time.